When we talk about investing in ourselves, the very first step is to understand our true worth. And I don't mean it in the superficial sense that society often pushes on us, net worth, appearance, or the labels we carry. I mean that deep of undeniable recognition that you are valuable simply because you exist. Too often, we measure ourselves against a yardstick that was never designed for us. We compare our lives to carefully filtered images, to other people's timelines, to standards that constantly shift. And the result, we undervalue ourselves. We play small. We tell ourselves that we are not ready, not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy of the opportunities waiting for us. But the truth is, your life only begins to transform the moment you stop negotiating with your worth. You are not defined by the mistakes you made, nor by the opinions of those who failed to see your potential. You are defined by the resilience that brought you here, by the courage it took to stand again when life knocked you down, and by the possibility of who you can still become. That recognition is the foundation of self-investment. Because how can you pour into yourself if you secretly believe you are not worth the effort? Think about it. Every great achievement you admire in others began with a decision rooted in self-belief. Nelson Mandela believed in the worth of freedom when the world tried to strip him of his own dignity. Malala Yousafzai believed in the worth of education even when silence was expected of her. And on a smaller scale, even in our daily lives, those who dare to step into growth are not necessarily the smartest, the most talented, or the luckiest. They are the ones who chose to believe they were worthy of trying. Psychology teaches us something fascinating. The way we perceive ourselves creates a filter through which we interpret everything else. If you believe you are unworthy, then opportunities appear like closed doors. Criticism feels like proof of failure. Challenges look like punishment. But when you begin to acknowledge your value, those same circumstances transform. A challenge becomes a stepping stone. Criticism turns into feedback. And an opportunity becomes a test of courage instead of a threat. The challenge is many of us have been conditioned to doubt ourselves. Maybe you grew up in an environment where your voice was silenced. Maybe you were told that dreams are unrealistic. Maybe you internalized the failures of your past as permanent proof that you don't deserve more. But here's the liberating truth: your worth is not up for negotiation. It cannot be erased by failure, nor diminished by rejection. It can only be hidden under layers of fear and doubt. And once you strip those away, you begin to see yourself clearly again. Philosophers often say that human beings spend their lives searching for meaning. But meaning is not something you stumble upon. It is something you create when you start treating yourself as someone valuable enough to nurture, to challenge, and to believe in. And when you shift into this mindset, every act of self-investment becomes an affirmation. Reading a book is no longer just about knowledge. It's a declaration that your mind deserves to grow. Exercising is no longer about appearance. It's an affirmation that your body deserves care. Setting boundaries is no longer selfish. It's a recognition that your energy is precious and must be protected. Let me share something important here. Many people wait for external validation before they begin to believe in themselves. They wait for applause, recognition, or permission. But if you keep waiting for the world to confirm your worth, you will wait forever. Your worth does not come from the outside in. It flows from the inside out. The world reflects what you project. And if you stand tall in the quiet conviction that you matter, that your dreams matter, the world eventually adjusts its gaze to meet yours. Now, let me be honest, understanding your worth does not mean arrogance. It does not mean dismissing others or pretending you have nothing to learn. It means holding yourself with quiet dignity, knowing that you belong, and carrying the courage to invest in the life you want without apology. True self-worth is humble. It acknowledges imperfection, but it refuses to let imperfection define destiny. And so, when I say invest in yourself, I am not simply talking about reading more books, taking courses, or networking harder. Those things are important, but they are secondary. The real investment begins with the belief that you deserve to become the best version of yourself. Without that foundation, every external effort collapses. With that foundation, even the smallest steps, saving a little money, learning a new skill, choosing a healthier meal, become powerful, because they are fueled by a conviction that you are worth the effort. So today, I want you to pause and reflect. Are you living as though you believe in your worth? Or are you shrinking, doubting, waiting for permission? Because no matter how many strategies, books, or opportunities come your way, if you don't first decide that you are worthy of them, you will sabotage yourself. The life you want is not waiting for someone else to give you the key. It is waiting for you to unlock the door from within. And once you do, once you truly understand your worth, you'll realize that the best investment you will ever make is not in stocks or businesses or possessions. It is in the unshakable, unstoppable force that is you. Once you begin to understand your true worth, the next natural step is to nurture it. And the most powerful way to nurture your worth is through lifelong learning. Knowledge is not just information. It is nourishment for the mind, fuel for the spirit, and a tool for transformation. When you choose to learn continuously, you are essentially telling yourself, I am not a finished product. I am a work in progress, and progress is the greatest gift I can give myself. The tragedy is that many people stop learning the day they leave school or university. They believe education ends with a diploma, as if a piece of paper could ever represent the full potential of a human being. But real education begins when life hands you questions with no easy answers. It begins when you step into the unknown, when you are curious enough to ask, when you are humble enough to listen, and when you are courageous enough to grow. Think about this, the world is changing at a pace faster than ever before in history. New technologies emerge, new ideas reshape industries, new perspectives challenge old systems. If you cling to what you knew 5 years ago, you are already behind. And this is not just about professional success. This is about how you experience life. The more you learn, the more you expand your capacity to see possibilities, to solve problems, and to connect with others on a deeper level. Philosophically speaking, learning is an act of liberation. Ignorance chains you to fear, to prejudice, to limitation. But knowledge breaks those chains. It opens doors you didn't even know existed. It gives you language to express yourself, wisdom to navigate challenges, and insight to recognize opportunities where others only see obstacles. When you invest in learning, you are expanding the very horizon of what your life can be. There is also a psychological dimension to lifelong learning. Studies in neuroscience show that the brain remains plastic. It can grow, adapt, and form new pathways throughout life. Every time you learn a new skill, every time you challenge your mind with fresh ideas, you are literally rewiring your brain. That means you are not fixed. You are not defined by your current abilities. You can expand, adapt, and evolve. Isn't that a powerful thought? That no matter your age, or your background, or your past, you still have the capacity to become more. But here's something important. Learning is not just about formal education or collecting degrees. It is about cultivating curiosity. It is about paying attention to life itself. You can learn from a book, yes, but also from a stranger's story, from a mistake you made, from observing nature, from listening deeply to someone who disagrees with you. The world is your classroom, and every moment offers a lesson if you are willing to see it. And let us be honest, continuous learning requires humility. It requires admitting that you do not know everything, that there is still room to grow. Arrogance closes the door to wisdom, while humility opens it wider each day. When you approach life with the mindset of a learner, you shift from defensiveness to openness, from rigidity to flexibility. You begin to see failures not as permanent marks against you, but as teachers in disguise. So many people fear failure, but failure is not the opposite of learning. It is the essence of it. Every time you stumble, you gather data. You learn what does not work, which moves you closer to what does. The great inventors, leaders, and thinkers of history were not those who avoided failure, but those who turned failure into feedback. That perspective is only possible when you commit to lifelong learning. Now imagine what happens when you combine an awareness of your worth with a hunger to learn. You create a powerful cycle. Your worth tells you that you deserve to grow, and your learning equips you with the tools to grow. The more you learn, the more confident you become in your ability to adapt. And the more confident you become, the more courage you have to take on bigger challenges. I want you to pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you invested in your learning? Not just for work, not just for survival, but for the joy of becoming more. Too many people say they don't have time, but the truth is, you don't have time not to learn. Because every day you delay is a day you remain the same, while the world keeps moving forward. So start small. Read a few pages of a book each day. Listen to a podcast that challenges your thinking. Learn a new language, a new skill, a new perspective. Take an online course not just to add a line on your resume, but to expand the person you are becoming. Do not underestimate these small, consistent investments, like drops of water shaping a stone. They transform you over time. Because in the end, learning is not about what you know, it's about who you become. And who you become determines the quality of the life you live. So I leave you with this thought: the greatest poverty is not the lack of money, it is the lack of growth. And the greatest wealth is not possessions, but wisdom. So do not wait for the world to teach you. Become your own teacher. Make learning a habit. Make growth your lifestyle, and watch how your life begins to expand in ways you never imagined. When you recognize your worth and commit to learning, the next crucial step is discipline. The ability to translate belief and knowledge into consistent action. Because knowing your value is powerful and learning is transformative, but without discipline, these remain untapped potential. Discipline is the bridge between intention and reality. It is the difference between dreaming of a better life and actually creating one. We often romanticize transformation as one big breakthrough moment, but real change rarely happens overnight. It is born out of repetition. It is built in the small, seemingly ordinary choices we make every single day. The truth is, success is not one giant leap. It is thousands of small steps taken with consistency, even when motivation fades. That is the essence of discipline. Psychology tells us that human beings are creatures of habit. Our brains are designed to conserve energy by repeating familiar patterns. That means much of what we do each day is not driven by conscious decision, but by habit loops that run automatically. This can either be your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. If your habits are destructive, procrastination, distraction, neglect of health, they slowly erode your potential. But if your habits are constructive, focus, discipline, of self-care, they compound over time into extraordinary results. Think of it this way: if you dedicate just 30 minutes each day to reading, in 1 year you could finish over 20 books. If you spend 20 minutes exercising, in 1 year you could completely transform your energy and health. The changes feel small in the moment, almost insignificant, but they are not. They are seeds. And discipline is the soil that allows them to grow into a harvest. The challenge is, discipline is often misunderstood. People think discipline means rigidity, a kind of punishment, or the absence of joy. But discipline is not about restriction. It is about liberation. It is about freeing yourself from the chaos of inconsistency. When you have discipline, you don't waste energy fighting with yourself each day about whether you will follow through. You simply follow through. And in that, you gain a sense of peace. Discipline doesn't limit your freedom, it expands it, because it gives you control over your choices instead of being controlled by impulses. But discipline must also be paired with compassion. Too often we set unrealistic standards and punish ourselves when we fail. That is not sustainable. True discipline is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about returning to the path even after you stumble. It is about building momentum slowly, steadily, with patience. Remember, even the most disciplined people in the world fail sometimes. The difference is they don't stay down, they begin again. Now, let us talk about healthy habits, because discipline without the right habits is like effort without direction. Habits are the architecture of your life. They shape your days, and your days shape your destiny. When you cultivate habits that nurture your mind, body, and spirit, you create a foundation strong enough to carry you through challenges. A healthy habit could be as simple as starting your morning with gratitude instead of immediately checking your phone. It could be eating in a way that nourishes rather than drains you. It could be dedicating time to move your body, to meditate, to journal, to connect with loved ones. These may sound simple, even ordinary, but do not underestimate them, because the ordinary, when repeated with discipline, becomes extraordinary. And here's the truth: habits are contagious. Just as negativity spreads, so does growth. When you build healthy habits, you don't only transform yourself, you inspire those around you. Your children, your colleagues, your friends, they observe your consistency. They see the difference in your energy, your focus, your resilience. And often, that influence becomes the spark for their own transformation. From a philosophical perspective, discipline and habits are an expression of respect. Respect for your time, of respect for your body, respect for your potential. They are a way of honoring the gift of life by not wasting it in distraction and neglect. If you believe you are worthy of, and if you are committed to growing through learning, then the natural way to honor that belief is to structure your life through habits that align with your vision. Of course, this is not easy. There will be days when you don't feel like showing up, days when excuses seem louder than your goals, of days when you convince yourself that skipping one effort won't matter, and maybe skipping once won't. But if you repeat it, it becomes a habit too, the habit of giving up. That is why discipline is not about grand gestures, but about small commitments honored daily. So, how do you cultivate discipline? You begin by starting small. Too often, people try to change everything at once and burn out quickly. Instead, focus on one habit, master it, then build another. Discipline grows like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And just as a muscle needs rest and recovery, you must allow yourself grace in the process. The life you dream of will not come from occasional bursts of effort. It will come from steady, disciplined practice. And here is the paradox: at first, discipline feels heavy. It requires effort. But over time, it becomes effortless because it turns into habit. And when it does, you no longer have to push yourself uphill. You are carried forward by the momentum you have created. So, I ask you to reflect. What habits are shaping your life right now? Are they moving you closer to the person you want to be, or further away? Because whether you notice it or not, of your habits are building your future. Every choice you repeat is a brick in the structure of your destiny. And if that is true, then let me leave you with this: discipline is not punishment, it is self-respect. Habits are not chores, they are choices that either build or break you. So choose wisely, act consistently, and remember, your future is being built not in the big moments, but in the small, daily decisions you make when no one is watching. So far, we've spoken about knowing your worth, about embracing lifelong learning, and about building discipline and habits that sustain growth. But here is something we must not ignore, no matter how much you value yourself, no matter how much you learn, and no matter how disciplined you become. If your mind and emotions are constantly drained, you cannot sustain progress. Protecting your mental and emotional energy is not optional, it is essential. We live in a world that pulls at us from every direction. Our phones buzz with endless notifications. Our environments are filled with demands, expectations, and noise. And if we are not careful, we give away our energy to everything and everyone until nothing remains for ourselves. We become exhausted, not because we are incapable, but because we are scattered. We lose focus, not because we lack intelligence, but because we never pause to guard our attention. You see, your energy is your life force. It is the fuel that powers your learning, your discipline, your creativity, and your resilience. If you spend it recklessly, on negativity, on unnecessary conflict, on toxic environments, you will find yourself drained even before you begin the journey. But if you learn to channel it wisely, to protect it fiercely, you discover a reservoir of strength that carries you much further than you thought possible. Psychology teaches us that what we give attention to grows. If you focus constantly on fear, you amplify it. If you dwell on criticism, it multiplies in your mind. But if you cultivate gratitude, resilience, and hope, these emotions expand as well. Protecting your energy means becoming intentional about where you place your attention. It means choosing not to feed the thoughts that weaken you and nurturing the ones that strengthen you. This is not about toxic positivity or pretending that pain does not exist. Life will bring challenges, heartbreaks, and losses. Protecting your energy does not mean avoiding these realities. It means facing them with awareness, but refusing to let them consume your entire being. It is the art of processing pain without becoming pain. It is the strength of acknowledging darkness while still choosing to walk toward light. And let us talk about people. The truth is, not everyone around you deserves access to your energy. Some people will uplift you, inspire you, challenge you to be better. Others will drain you, diminish you, or discourage you. Part of protecting your mental and emotional energy is learning the power of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates to decide who and what you allow in. Saying no is not selfish, it is self-respect. Protecting your peace is not avoidance, it is preservation. Think about it when you are drained, when your mind is cluttered and your emotions are heavy. How well can you show up for others? Not very well. Protecting your energy is not just about you. It is about ensuring you can serve, love, and contribute from a place of wholeness rather than depletion. From a philosophical perspective, the mind is like a garden. If you do not intentionally plant seeds of wisdom, hope, and clarity, weeds of negativity and chaos will take over. Protecting your mental energy is about becoming the gardener of your inner world. It is about pulling out the weeds daily, self-doubt, comparison, anger, and replacing them with practices that nurture you: gratitude, reflection, forgiveness. But here is the paradox. Many people think protecting their energy means withdrawing from life, but it is the opposite. The more you protect your inner strength, the more fully you can engage with life. You can work with focus because you are not distracted. You can love deeply because you are not drained. You can face challenge with courage because you are not carrying unnecessary burdens. There are practical ways to do this. Begin your day with intention rather than reaction. Instead of starting with the noise of the world, start with silence, with reflection, with gratitude. Limit your exposure to negativity. Whether it is endless scrolling on social media or conversations that always leave you feeling small. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow, not those who anchor you to your past. Give yourself permission to rest, because rest is not laziness, it is recovery. And perhaps most importantly, protect your energy by the way you speak to yourself. The loudest voice you will ever hear is your own inner dialogue. If you constantly criticize yourself, belittle your progress, or compare your journey to others, you drain your own spirit. But if you speak with compassion, if you remind yourself daily of your worth, if you encourage yourself like you would a loved one, if you generate energy instead of losing it. Remember, you cannot always control what happens around you, but you can control how much of it you allow inside you. The world may be chaotic, but you can still choose peace. The world may be noisy, but you can still create silence. The world may be demanding, but you can still decide where your energy flows. So let me leave you with this: your energy is your currency. Spend it wisely. Do not invest it in what drains you, invest it in what sustains you. Guard it not with fear, but with wisdom. Because when you protect your mental and emotional energy, you don't just preserve your strength, you multiply it. And with that strength, you can face life not as a victim of circumstance, but as the author of your own story. Once you have recognized your worth, committed to learning, built the discipline of habits, and protected your mental and emotional energy, there comes a moment when you must take the next step: risk. Because all the preparation in the world, knowledge, discipline, clarity, remains incomplete unless you have the courage to act. Growth does not live in comfort. It waits in the unfamiliar, in the uncertain, in the places that stretch you beyond what you already know. Most people admire boldness in others, but hesitate to practice it themselves. We look at entrepreneurs who started businesses from nothing, at leaders who stood against the tide, at artists who pursued their passion despite rejection, and we call them extraordinary. But they are not extraordinary because they were fearless. They are extraordinary because they felt the fear and moved anyway. Fear was present, but courage was louder. The truth is, risk will always carry the possibility of failure, and that is why so many avoid it. But what we often forget is that avoiding risk is itself the greatest risk, because in trying to stay safe, you remain stagnant. You stay in the same place, doing the same things, living the same life, while your potential, your possibilities, and your future silently wither. Safety becomes a cage, and growth requires you to step outside of it. Philosophically, risk is the birthplace of transformation. Every time you risk stepping into the unknown, you rewrite the story of what is possible for you. You prove to yourself that you are more capable than you imagined. And even when you stumble, the experience reshapes you. Failure teaches you resilience. Rejection builds humility. Mistakes refine your judgment. In this way, risk is not the enemy of growth, it is the teacher of growth. Psychology also offers us a profound insight. Human beings are wired to seek certainty because uncertainty feels threatening. But that same uncertainty is the soil of creativity and progress. Nothing new can be born in certainty. If you only operate within what you already know, you limit yourself to repeating the past. Risk forces you into spaces where innovation, adaptation, and transformation become necessary. And it is in those spaces that your greatest growth occurs. Now, I am not asking you to take reckless risks. This is not about gambling with your life, your health, or your relationships. It is about intentional risks, risks that align with your vision, with the person you are becoming. It is about applying the knowledge you have gained, the habits you have built, and the energy you have protected, and channeling them into bold action. That may mean starting a business you've been postponing, speaking up when you've been silent, applying for a job that feels out of reach, or simply daring to say yes when your fear tells you to say no. And let's be honest, the first step into risk is always the hardest. You will hear the voice of doubt, whispering all the ways things might go wrong. You will replay your past failures, questioning whether you are capable. But here is the truth. Courage is not the absence of that voice. It is the decision not to let that voice decide your future. Think about it, every breakthrough in your life so far came from a moment of risk. The friendships you cherish began with the risk of reaching out. Of the skills you have today were built because you risked trying something new. Even love itself is a risk, because to love is to open yourself to vulnerability. Life, in its very essence, is risk. To deny risk is to deny life. There is a powerful shift that happens when you start seeing risk not as danger, but as opportunity. Suddenly, instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you begin to ask, "What if I grow? What if I succeed?" What if this is the very step that changes everything? That shift in perspective is what separates those who stay stuck from those who move forward. And here is something profound: when you take bold risks, you inspire others. Courage is contagious. Your willingness to step into the unknown gives permission for others to do the same. You become a living example that it is possible to live beyond fear, to embrace uncertainty, and to create a life not defined by limitations but by possibilities. Of course, risks will not always bring immediate rewards. Sometimes they will bring setbacks. Sometimes they will test you more than they reward you. But even then, you will walk away stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the next step. Because the true reward of risk is not just the outcome. It is the transformation of the person who dared. So I ask you, where in your life are you playing small? Where are you holding back because the risk feels too great? And more importantly, what is it costing you to stay safe? The dreams you have, the person you want to become, the life you want to live, they all live on the other side of risk. And let me remind you, boldness is not about never being afraid. Boldness is about acting with fear still in your heart, but refusing to let it paralyze you. So let me leave you with this thought: your growth is waiting for you just beyond the edges of your comfort zone. Take the risk. Step forward, because the moment you dare to leap, you will discover that even if you fall, you land on lessons that lift you higher than before. And if you succeed, you will realize that the risk was not a threat. It was a doorway to the life you were always meant to live.